How much can a man's name be worth if the world has already decided his toolbox is worth $9? Adrian Cross tapped the yellow price sticker with his pen, and laughter rolled through the rescue equipment hangar. Marcus Reed stepped between the cameras and his 10-year-old son as Caleb pressed a scratched metal tag against his chest. Across the aisle, an old veteran in a gray coat saw the same letters beneath a peeling CrossAid label. "Turn that kid around," Adrian ordered. Caleb tugged Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, it says MR." 3 hours earlier, the only sound inside Marcus's garage had been the dry buzz of a fluorescent tube and the soft click of steel settling into steel. The air smelled of machine oil, cold coffee, and the rain that had blown under the warped service door overnight. Marcus stood at his scarred workbench in a faded navy jacket, checking the red toolbox Caleb had found at a church sale for $9. One hinge was bent. The handle had been wrapped twice with black electrical tape. Every tool inside had been cleaned, sharpened, and placed with the care other men reserved for expensive instruments. Caleb sat on a stool, turning the scratched aluminum tag over in his hands. Marcus Reed, MR9, Unit 14 was stamped across the front. On the back, Naomi's handwriting had nearly faded into the metal. "Bring them home." "Do I have to carry this where everybody can see it?" Caleb asked. Marcus stopped tightening a brass fitting. "You don't have to carry anything that hurts." "It doesn't hurt." Caleb stared at the tag. "I just don't want them laughing before you even start." Marcus wiped his hands on a gray shop towel and crouched until they were eye to eye. "People laugh when they think the price tells them the value." He closed Caleb's fingers around the tag. "Our job is not to teach them manners today. Our job is to make sure nobody gets hurt." By 9:30, the old National Guard hangar in Columbus gleamed with polished rescue rigs, LED walls, and orange CrossAid banners hanging from steel rafters. Adrian Cross moved through the crowd with the calm smile of a man who had donated enough money to make every door open before he touched it. He shook firefighters' hands, posed beside children, and thanked veterans by name when cameras were near. Marcus noticed something else. Every CrossAid kit on display had a fresh label laid over older paint. The edges were too clean. The adhesive still shone under the lights. Caleb noticed the cameras first and moved closer to his father. Marcus placed the red toolbox on the assigned table and checked the floor anchors, the emergency exits, and the distance between the demonstration frame and the public barrier. That was when Adrian spotted the yellow sticker. He lifted the microphone, tapped the box 3 times, and turned Marcus's poverty into entertainment without ever raising his voice. Marcus heard the laughter. He saw Caleb lower his eyes. He also saw a gray-coated veteran at the far end of the aisle staring at a CrossAid kit whose corner label had begun to curl. Marcus stepped in front of his son, opened the toolbox, and ran his thumb across each tool. "Look at my hands," he said quietly. "Not their mouths." Behind Adrian, an employee hurried to rotate the damaged kit toward the wall. Adrian's smile remained warm, but his fingers tightened around the microphone. "Replace that label before the demonstration," he whispered. "And don't let anyone touch the old casing." The veteran's gaze sharpened. Beneath the peeling CrossAid strip, 2 engraved letters showed through the orange paint. "Amar." Then the light shifted, revealing the top of a 3rd mark cut in the exact same military block style as the nameplate Caleb was holding. The 3rd mark vanished when the CrossAid employee turned the rescue kit toward the wall, but General Nathaniel Ward kept staring at the place where it had been. Adrian Cross lowered the microphone and guided the crowd toward the demonstration stage with a practiced smile, as though nothing unusual had happened. Marcus closed the red toolbox, felt Caleb's shoulder beneath his palm, and followed the signs toward technical registration. The fluorescent lights grew harsher near the administrative tables. Their white glare caught every scratch on Marcus's navy work jacket and every frayed thread around his cuffs. Behind the folding tables, judges in matching blue badges spoke softly over laptops and paper cups of coffee. "Marcus Reed," Dr. Elaine Porter asked. "Yes, ma'am. You've been reassigned." Her voice was polished and patient, the kind used to explain a rule that had already been enforced. She slid a laminated card across the table. Instead of technical innovation, it read community charity displays. Beyond her shoulder, the charity section sat near the loading doors beside school projects, donated blankets, and handmade emergency kits assembled by scout troops. Marcus looked at the card, then at the full-size rescue frame he had spent 6 weeks preparing to demonstrate. My application was accepted for the engineering review. Provisionally. The email did not say that. Mr. Reed, we are trying to include you. Elaine folded her hands. The soft citrus scent of her perfume floated above the sharper smell of machine oil clinging to Marcus's jacket. But professional safety equipment must meet professional presentation standards. Homemade tools, unverified military-style components, and incomplete documentation create concerns. Travis Bell stood near the next table in a fitted gray suit, turning one of Marcus's worn pliers between 2 fingers. "This is what you plan to use?" he asked. Marcus held out his hand. Travis let the pliers drop into it rather than placing them there. The steel struck Marcus's palm with a flat metallic sound. "They've opened more jammed housings than most tools in this building," Marcus said. "That does not make them certified," Elaine replied. Adrian arrived with 2 cameras behind him and a white crossaid cap in his hand. "There's no shame in needing support," he said warmly. He bent and placed the cap on Caleb's head before the boy could move away. "Our foundation exists for families exactly like yours." One camera pushed closer. Caleb's face disappeared beneath the oversized brim. He took the cap off, folded the front inward to hide the logo, and placed it beside the red toolbox. "We didn't come for charity," he said. His voice was small, but it carried through the sudden quiet around the table. Marcus pulled a chair out for him. "Sit with me," he said. "But, Dad, you're allowed to be upset." Marcus crouched beside the chair and straightened the sleeve of Caleb's jacket. "Just don't let anybody else decide what you should be ashamed of." Ward had stopped several feet away, half hidden behind a group of volunteer firefighters. He watched Marcus comfort the boy without using him to earn sympathy from the cameras. Then his eyes moved to the paperwork beneath Elaine's hand. Marcus stood and asked for the written technical rules. Elaine gave him a thick packet, perhaps expecting the pages to end the discussion. Instead, he placed it in front of Caleb with a pencil. "Circle every rule they say we broke," he said. "Only the ones printed here." Caleb nodded and began reading line by line, his finger moving carefully beneath each sentence. Marcus turned back to Elaine. "I will not sign a form saying my design has no technical value. It is only a classification acknowledgement. It changes what I'm allowed to challenge if something fails." Elaine's smile tightened by less than an inch. "Nothing is going to fail." Marcus noticed the evaluation sheet beneath her wrist when she reached for the form. His name was printed at the top. A red stamp crossed the center. Rejected. At the bottom, the digital timestamp read 8:14 a.m. Marcus had not finished registration until 9:06. He lifted the page without touching it. "When was this scored?" Elaine covered the timestamp with her hand. "That is an internal draft. Before I arrived? It is a standard preliminary assessment. Of equipment you had not seen?" For the first time, Ward stepped closer, though he said nothing. He looked from the time on the sheet to the calm expression on Marcus's face. Elaine pulled the paper toward herself, but not before Marcus read the typed reason for rejection. 9-point manual release lacks approved validation. The air seemed to narrow around him. He had never described the 9-point release in his application. He had never shown it to the judges. He had not even opened the compartment where the mercy pin belonged. "That phrase," Marcus said. "Where did you get it?" "It is common terminology." Elaine answered too quickly. Across the aisle, Travis's eyes moved to Adrian before Adrian gave the smallest shake of his head. Caleb, still holding the pencil, glanced toward a folder tucked beneath Travis's arm. For half a second, its cover shifted open, revealing a diagram of 9 evenly spaced grooves drawn around a steel pin. Marcus knew the shape before the folder snapped shut. If the judges had rejected a mechanism he had never shown them, who had given them the design before he walked through the door? Marcus kept his eyes on the folder under Travis Bell's arm until Caleb touched his wrist. Dad, are we in trouble? No. Then why did they already say no? Marcus looked at the red rejected stamp, then at the pencil still resting between Caleb's fingers. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, cold and steady, while polished shoes crossed the concrete floor without slowing. Marcus folded the technical rules, slid them into the outer pocket of his toolbox, and closed the lid over the scratched aluminum tag. Because some people decide what they see before they look, he said. That does not mean we stop looking carefully. He could have followed Travis. He could have demanded the folder, called security, or raised his voice until the cameras turned back toward him. Instead, Marcus noticed the gray-coated veteran leaving the registration area with an uneven step. Nathaniel Ward's cane struck the floor once, dragged half an inch, then struck again. The rhythm was wrong. Marcus heard it before he saw the loose metal collar trembling beneath the handle. Caleb heard the sharp clatter behind them first. A wheeled cart loaded with compressed air cylinders had slipped free near the loading ramp. One employee grabbed a cross-aid display case and pulled it out of the cart's path. Another stepped behind a steel barrier. Ward turned too slowly. His damaged knee buckled as the cane folded beneath him. Dad, stay by the table. But he's going to fall. I see him. Marcus crossed the aisle in 3 long steps. He planted one boot against the cart's front wheel, caught Ward beneath the arm, and turned his own shoulder between the older man and the steel cylinders. The cart stopped with a violent shudder. Metal. Tanks knocked together, filling the hangar with a hollow, bell-like clang that cut through the music from the sponsor booths. For a moment, every nearby face turned toward them. Then the announcer resumed speaking, and most people looked away. Marcus guided Ward onto a wooden shipping crate. Do not put weight on that leg yet. I'm all right. Your cane isn't. I said I'm fine. Marcus crouched and ran his thumb beneath the broken locking collar. A hairline split crossed the cheap cast metal, bright as a silver thread. He opened the red toolbox and removed a small cloth roll from the bottom tray. Inside lay a single steel pin with 9 carefully cut grooves. Caleb came closer but stayed behind Marcus's shoulder. Is that the one for your test? He asked. Marcus did not answer immediately. The Mercy pin was the only piece he had not been able to replace after the machine shop raised its prices. Without it, his manual release model would lock at the 3rd stage. He had $63 left after rent, groceries, and Caleb's school field trip fee. A new pin would cost more than that. Ward saw the hesitation. Use wire, he said. Get through your demonstration. Marcus turned the broken collar in his hand. Wire will hold until you put your full weight on it. Then I'll be careful. That is what people say right before something fails. He cleaned the split housing with the corner of his gray shop towel, filed the damaged edge, and eased the Mercy pin through the collar. The grooves caught one by one with 9 soft clicks. His hands moved without hurry, the same hands that had once worked beside hospital beds, tightening loose wheelchair brakes while Naomi slept because fixing small things was easier than admitting there were things he could not repair. Caleb picked up the aluminum nameplate when it slipped from the open toolbox. He wiped a smear of oil from the front with his sleeve, then turned it over. Naomi's fading words caught the overhead light. Bring them home. Ward's eyes settled on the handwriting. His breathing changed so slightly Marcus might have missed it if he had not been listening for pain. Where did you get that plate? Ward asked. It was mine. From what unit? Marcus tightened the final screw on the cane. A long time ago. He stood and tested the lock against the concrete, first lightly, then with his full weight. The collar held. Marcus returned the cane to Ward. Try it. Ward rose carefully. The new pin took the pressure without shifting. What do I owe you? Nothing. That part was not nothing. You needed it. Ward reached inside his coat, but Marcus closed the toolbox before money could appear. Keep your balance. That is enough. Across the aisle, Adrian watched through the reflection of a glass display case. He leaned toward Elaine Porter and spoke without losing his public smile. Deduct him for abandoning his station. Elaine hesitated, He prevented an accident. He left an unsecured prototype unattended. Marcus heard none of it. He walked Ward toward the first aid station, matching his pace to the older man's careful steps. Caleb carried the toolbox with both hands, the scratched nameplate tucked safely beneath the top tray. Ward glanced down at the steel pin inside his cane. Who taught you to cut 9 pressure stages? Marcus looked ahead. People who did not get a second chance when equipment failed. Ward said nothing after that. At the medical station, he watched Marcus check that a volunteer had properly locked the cane before leaving. He watched Marcus return to Caleb, straighten the boy's collar, and apologize for making him wait. The act had cost Marcus his last working pin, his remaining chance at the demonstration, and another penalty on a scorecard already marked against him. No camera had stayed long enough to record it. As Marcus and Caleb walked away, Travis approached Adrian near the glass case and nodded toward Ward's repaired cane. "You should have stopped him," Travis whispered. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Travis stared at the 9-grooved pin holding the cane together. "Because that's a mercy pin." Ward heard every word. His hand froze on the handle, and for the first time, he understood that Marcus's small act of kindness had placed a piece of buried military history directly into his grasp. Ward kept his hand wrapped around the repaired cane while Travis's words settled between them. "That's a mercy pin." Adrian Cross turned first. His expression stayed composed, but the muscles along his jaw tightened. "A nickname," he said. "Nothing more." Marcus and Caleb had only reached the end of the aisle when Elaine Porter called after them. "Mr. Reed, stop there, please." The request sounded courteous. 2 security officers stepped into the walkway before Marcus could answer. Elaine approached with a clipboard pressed against her navy blazer. "We have a concern about an unauthorized military component being introduced into the event." Marcus looked at the mercy pin inside Ward's cane, then at the officers. "I repaired a broken lock with an unregistered device. It is a steel pin. It may be proprietary material." Adrian joined them, lowering his voice as cameras drifted closer. "No one is accusing you of anything, Marcus. We simply need to understand why a civilian repairman brought restricted cross-aid technology onto the floor." Caleb moved closer to his father. "It came from our toolbox." Adrian smiled at him without warmth. "Let the adults handle this, son." Marcus rested one hand lightly on Caleb's shoulder. "He answered the question you asked." Ward watched the exchange from several feet away. He knew enough about federal procurement to understand both possibilities. Marcus might be a former technician carrying an old component he no longer had the right to use, or CrossAid might be disguising a copied military design as private property. Kindness did not settle that question. Neither did poverty. "May I see the pin?" Ward asked. Marcus looked at him. "It is holding your cane together." "Then show me how it works without removing it." Marcus crouched beside the cane. He did not mention Unit 14. He did not claim ownership. He took a length of packing cord from his pocket, looped it around the lower brace, and placed a bent paper clip against the collar. 9 grooves, he said. Each one lowers pressure in a controlled step if the powered release dies. Travis folded his arms. "That is standard load sequencing." Marcus looked up. "Then demonstrate it on your kit." The nearby conversations thinned. Forklift beeped in reverse at the far end of the hangar, the sound repeating into the quiet. Travis glanced toward Adrian before answering. "We do not conduct unscheduled tests. You called the part yours." Marcus's voice remained level. "Show him what it does." Adrian stepped between them. "The public floor is not the place for improvised challenges." "Then the service record will answer it." Marcus nodded toward the orange CrossAid unit beside the demonstration frame. Its maintenance card hung beneath the control panel. "Who signed the last manual release inspection?" Elaine moved quickly and lifted the card from its hook. "That record is internal." Marcus did not reach for it. He only angled his body until the overhead light passed across the plastic sleeve. The signature line was empty. A bright rectangle of newer adhesive surrounded the inspection seal, while a darker crescent of old glue showed beneath one edge. Was that seal replaced this morning? Marcus asked. Elaine pressed the card flat against her clipboard. Routine updates are not evidence of misconduct. I did not say they were. You are implying it. I asked when it was replaced. Ward's eyes narrowed. Elaine had given an explanation to a question Marcus had not asked. Caleb tugged Marcus's sleeve and pointed toward the phone in his own hand. He had been recording short clips for a school science assignment, nothing more. Dad, he whispered. He said mercy pin before you did. Marcus looked at the screen. The video showed Ward's repaired cane, Travis stepping into frame, and the words clearly caught above the noise. That's a mercy pin. Marcus checked the timestamp. The clip had been recorded 3 minutes before he explained the 9-stage release to anyone near them. He did not hold the phone up like a victory. He placed it face down on the toolbox. Mr. Bell, he said. Where did you learn that name? Travis's confidence shifted by a fraction. It is an old industry term. From which manual? I do not carry manuals in my head. Adrian stepped closer to Caleb's phone. That recording may violate event privacy rules. Ward noticed how quickly he moved to control the device. He also noticed that Travis had called the component proprietary, then standard, then old industry language, all within less than a minute. Leave the phone where it is, Ward said. Adrian looked at the gray coat, the cane, and the worn shoes, still seeing only an elderly volunteer. With respect, sir, this is a corporate safety matter. Ward gave a small nod. Then safety records should survive a simple question. Adrian's smile returned, thinner now. He told Elaine the service log was being updated off-site. Elaine immediately said it had been sent for legal review. The two explanations hung beside each other, polished and incompatible. Marcus turned toward the cross-aid kit again. Through the vented panel, he could see the manual release spring seated backward, its hooked end facing the load instead of the release channel. He listened as a technician powered the unit for the afternoon test. Beneath the electric hum came a faint metallic snap, too soft for anyone else to notice. Marcus looked at Travis. When you cut the power, he said, do not press the release twice. Travis gave a dismissive smile. Ward's hand tightened around the mercy pin, because Marcus had just predicted a failure in a machine he had not been allowed to touch. Marcus's warning stayed in the air as the cross-aid technician rolled a 200-pound rescue mannequin beneath the steel demonstration frame. Cut the power, Travis Bell said. Run the manual release, Elaine Porter added. And keep Mr. Reed behind the barrier. A motor whined above them, lifting the mannequin until its weighted boots hung 6 feet over the concrete. The smell of hot wiring drifted from the control cabinet. Marcus stood beside Caleb with both hands visible on the closed red toolbox, watching the tension cable tremble against the pulley. Nathaniel Ward remained near the front, his repaired cane planted firmly beneath one palm. The mercy pin inside it had become the only working example of the mechanism Marcus believed cross-aid had removed. A technician shut down the main power. The lights on the control panel went black. For half a second, nothing moved. Then Travis pulled the manual release lever. The mannequin dropped 1 inch and stopped. A yellow warning light blinked on the independent load monitor. Again, Adrian said quietly. Marcus's eyes moved to the spring behind the vented panel. Do not pull it twice. Travis looked directly at him and pulled again. The locking assembly snapped inward with a sharp metallic crack. The cable jerked. The load monitor climbed from yellow into red. A folding chair scraped across the floor and then stopped. The conversations behind the barrier disappeared so completely that the hum of the hangar's ventilation system became audible. Travis gripped the lever with both hands. The test rig is binding. Stop pulling, Marcus said. I have it under control. The load is rising. Elaine raised one hand toward the crowd. There is no danger. This is a controlled demonstration. The independent safety engineer leaned toward the sensor screen. It just passed the rated chest compression threshold. Adrian stepped closer to him. Let us handle the technical interpretation privately. Marcus did not smile. He did not remind anyone that he had predicted the failure. He looked instead at a young maintenance worker kneeling beside the suspended frame. Elaine pointed toward the jammed housing. "Get underneath and free the lower latch." The worker hesitated, then lowered his head and began crawling beneath the mannequin. Marcus crossed the line before security could stop him and caught the back of the worker's vest. "Not under a live load." Elaine's face hardened. "Mr. Reed, step away." Marcus guided the young man backward until both of them were clear. "No score is worth putting your neck under something that is not mechanically locked." He turned to the independent engineer. "Lower the entire frame with the auxiliary hoist. Do not touch the release housing until the weight is on the floor." The engineer glanced at Ward. Ward gave no order, only asked, "Is that the safest procedure?" "Yes," the engineer said. "Then document that answer," Ward replied. The auxiliary chain rattled through its gears. Inch by inch, the steel frame descended until the mannequin rested on a padded platform. Only then did Marcus approach the housing. He did not open it himself. He pointed through the vent while the independent engineer removed the cover under camera. The spring sat backward, its hooked end driven toward the load channel. The release arm had stopped at the third groove. Beside it was an empty semicircular socket, polished by a component that was no longer there. Caleb leaned closer to the barrier. "That is where the pin goes," he whispered. Marcus nodded once. The fear in the boy's face softened, not because his father had won, but because the machine had failed exactly where Marcus said it would. The high-speed camera replay showed the same sequence from 3 angles. The backward spring, the second pull, the lock rotating the wrong direction. Sensor data confirmed the pressure had increased after Travis's second attempt. Ward slowly placed his free hand on the edge of the evidence table. "Make 3 copies," he told the independent engineer. "1 for the event organizer, 1 for the fire department, and 1 sealed." Adrian's polite smile returned. "Sir, with respect, you are only a volunteer observer. Then you should have no objection to an observer preserving public safety data." Adrian turned to Elaine. "We need to avoid creating a misleading narrative." Marcus looked through the open housing. "The data is not a narrative." Adrian's gaze shifted toward the empty socket. Crossaid removed an outdated military component because it was unsuitable for civilian production. The room changed again. Until that moment, Crossaid's brochures had claimed Travis designed the system from the ground up. Now Adrian had admitted that something military had been removed from an earlier version. Ward's eyes settled on the Mercy pin inside his cane. "What component?" he asked. Adrian adjusted his cuff. "A redundant pressure stage device." "Does it have a name?" "Not one relevant to this test." Travis said nothing. Elaine closed the maintenance folder before anyone could see the missing signatures inside. Marcus did not press them. He asked the engineer to photograph the backward spring, the empty socket, and the serial plate before the housing was closed. Adrian then announced that the failed unit would be taken out of service and called the incident an isolated setup error. He promised the scheduled live demonstration would continue using another Crossaid kit from a different production batch. Ward's hand tightened around his cane. The first test had proved Marcus was not guessing, but it had opened a larger question. If Crossaid had removed the Mercy pin from the design, how many rescue kits were already carrying the same hidden weakness? The empty semicircular socket inside the failed Crossaid lock stayed on the monitor after the crowd began moving again. Adrian called it an isolated setup error. Marcus saw something else. The polished edge around the socket meant a component had once sat there, worked there, and been removed after repeated use. "The live demonstration is cancelled," Marcus said. "You no longer have authority on this floor," Elaine Porter replied. "Then ask your independent engineer." "The second unit is from another production batch," Adrian said. "We will not frighten the public over one improperly seated spring." His voice remained smooth, but he had stopped smiling. A thin line of sweat had appeared above his collar despite the cold air pouring from the hangar vents. Marcus looked past him toward the second rescue frame. A 16-year-old fire cadet named Eli was already being fitted into the orange harness, while an older maintenance worker checked the elevated platform beneath it. Caleb stood behind the barrier, holding the red toolbox close to his legs. "Dad," he said quietly, "that one has the same hole." Marcus followed his son's finger. Through the side vent, the same empty half-moon shape caught the overhead light. "Move the boy out of the harness," Marcus said. Travis stepped between him and the frame. "You do not get to stop a certified demonstration because your homemade part is missing." Marcus did not raise his voice. "Run the manual release without a person in it. We already completed the safety check. Your service card had no signature." Elaine lifted her clipboard. "Mr. Reed, step away or security will remove you." Ward's cane touched the floor once. The mercy pin inside it gave a faint metallic click. He studied the second unit, then took out his phone and sent a message without showing anyone the screen. "Preserve all controller data. No Crossaid personnel in the evidence chain." A moment later, a reply appeared from a federal procurement auditor waiting outside the hangar. "Understood." Ward slipped the phone back into his coat. He still had not told Marcus who he was. Evidence had begun to speak, and he wanted to know whether it would continue speaking without his rank forcing the answer. The announcer began the countdown. "Power cut at 0. Marcus heard the first click from the upper lock. Then came a second, lower sound, like a wrench slipping inside a closed drawer. "Stop," he said. Travis pressed the release button. The harness tightened around Eli's chest. The boy's breath broke into short, shallow pulls. At the same moment, the maintenance platform tilted and trapped the older worker's boot beneath its lower brace. The crowd did not scream. It inhaled as one body. Then the hangar went strangely quiet except for the warning tone from the control panel. "Reset the system," Adrian ordered. "Do not press it again," Marcus said. Travis pressed it again. The tension cable snapped half an inch tighter. Marcus turned to the event medic. "He needs someone who understands the manual stages." The medic looked at the red numbers climbing on the pressure screen, then nodded. Marcus crossed the barrier only after receiving permission. He did not touch the main control panel. He secured the tilted platform with an auxiliary chain, released the maintenance worker's trapped foot, and told Eli to look directly at him. "For seconds in," Marcus said. "For seconds out. Stay with my voice." Ward removed the mercy pin from his cane and placed it in Marcus's open palm. Marcus inserted it into the empty socket and lowered the pressure one groove at a time. 9 small clicks moved through the lock. On the 7th, Eli could breathe normally again. On the 9th, the harness opened. Marcus caught the boy beneath the shoulders, kept his spine straight, and lowered him onto the medical pad. He folded his faded navy jacket beneath Eli's head before anyone could point a camera at him. The control cabinet had cracked. Under the uneven load, through the split casing, Caleb saw a corner of dull aluminum beneath the bright Crossaid shell. "Dad," he whispered from behind the barrier. "There are letters inside." Ward ordered the unit sealed and requested that its controller footage be copied before anyone disconnected power. Adrian moved close to Marcus while the medics checked Eli. "We can solve this privately," he said. "Crossaid will cover your garage debt, your legal expenses, even Caleb's education." Marcus kept his eyes on Eli's mother as she pushed through the crowd toward her son. "Recall the kits. Do not be emotional. Recall them. You could protect your family." Marcus finally looked at him. "I am protecting the families who have not used the next one yet." A portable industrial scanner was brought to the evidence table. Its white beam passed across the damaged casing while the printer released a sheet with a slow mechanical hiss. Beneath the Crossaid label, the image showed an older aluminum plate fixed by 4 newer rivets. The room fell still when the technician enlarged the buried engraving. Only part of the name was visible through the damaged shell, but it was enough to read. "'Cause read." Ward looked at Marcus's scratched nameplate, then at the hidden metal inside the kit. Adrian reached for the printed scan and missed it when the technician pulled it back. By then, the cameras had turned toward the evidence table, and the truth inside the machine was already too heavy to be handled behind a closed door. By late afternoon, The demonstration floor had been rearranged into a public review hearing beneath the same orange cross-aid banners where Marcus and Caleb had been laughed at that morning. Folding chairs faced the raised platform. Fire captains, county officials, reporters, rescue volunteers, and families from the community filled the old National Guard hangar in ordered rows, their coats carrying the smells of rain, coffee, and machine oil into the cold fluorescent air. Marcus entered without his navy jacket because it was still folded beneath Eli's head at the medical station. His gray shirt showed a dark line of sweat across the shoulders. Caleb walked beside him, carrying the red $9 toolbox with both hands, the scratched MR9 nameplate tucked beneath the top tray. Nathaniel Ward stood near the evidence table in his gray coat, one hand resting on the cane Marcus had repaired. He could have ended the uncertainty with a title and a command, but he remained silent. He wanted to see which story survived when every eye in the room was watching. Adrian Cross reached the microphone first. "No one here cares more about public safety than Cross-Aid," he began. "Today's incident was frightening, and we are grateful that young Eli is stable. But fear should not be allowed to replace facts." Behind him, a screen displayed a polished photograph of Marcus beside the damaged kit. Mr. Reed entered a restricted area with an unapproved military component, altered our equipment, and now claims ownership of technology his own records show he transferred years ago. Elaine Porter placed a document beneath the camera mounted over the evidence table. Marcus's name appeared at the bottom in a familiar slant. The heading read Intellectual Property Assignment Agreement. A payment figure sat beside the signature. The timestamp read 9:42 p.m. Adrian allowed the room to absorb it before speaking again. Mr. Reed was compensated. Cross-Aid preserved and modernized the design. What we are witnessing now is not a search for truth. It is a private financial grievance being turned into a public spectacle. A reporter lowered her pen. Someone behind Marcus whispered that the signature looked real. For the first time since the X-ray revealed his name inside the kit, the room seemed to lean away from him. Caleb stared at the screen. Naomi Reed's name appeared in a small note describing Marcus's emergency resignation. His fingers tightened around the toolbox handle. Marcus touched the back of his hand. "You do not have to stay for this," he said quietly. Caleb swallowed. "I want to stand with you. Then stand beside me. You do not have to explain anything for me." Marcus walked to the microphone without looking at Adrian. He did not deny that the signature resembled his. He did not tell the room how Naomi had looked beneath hospital light or how long one night could become when a machine counted breaths for someone you loved. He pointed only to the timestamp. "Check where I was at 9:42. Adrian gave a restrained smile. "Memories change under stress. I did not ask you to trust my memory." Marcus stepped back. "Check the record." Ward lifted one finger toward the independent auditor. The first image appeared on the screen. The scratched aluminum plate Caleb had carried all day, Marcus Reed MR9. Unit 14 stamped across its face. Beside it appeared the X-ray from the damaged Cross-Aid unit, showing the same letter spacing beneath 4 newer rivets. Adrian answered smoothly. "Legacy components. Legally acquired." The second exhibit played. Caleb's short school video showed Travis looking at Ward's repaired cane and saying, "That's a mercy pin," 3 minutes before Marcus explained the mechanism publicly. Adrian said the term had circulated informally among engineers. Then the sensor graph from the 90-second test appeared, followed by camera footage of Marcus warning Travis not to pull the release twice. The pressure line rose exactly after the second pull. Adrian blamed a defective test rig. His explanations were plausible one at a time. Together, they began to sound rehearsed. Ward placed his palm slowly on the sealed evidence folder. "Now the timestamp," he said. The hospital access log appeared. Marcus had entered St. Anne's at 6:18 p.m. His vehicle remained in the hospital parking structure until morning. A nursing record carried his handwritten initials at 9:37. A respiratory care form carried them again at 10:03. Between those times, hallway footage showed Marcus seated beside Naomi's room, his head bowed, his hands clasped between his knees. The only sound in the hangar was the projector fan. That footage proves he was at a hospital, Elaine said. It does not prove he could not sign electronically. The auditor displayed the document metadata. The assignment agreement had been created from an administrator account inside Adrian's executive office. The signature image was not newly written. It matched, pixel for pixel, a signature copied from an equipment return form Marcus had signed months earlier. Adrian's hand moved toward the water glass and stopped before touching it. Marcus looked at him but did not raise his voice. "That night belonged to my wife," he said. "I will not use it to make strangers pity me. The records are enough." The room held still. Then Travis made the smallest mistake. Asked where he obtained the original MR9 drawings, he answered, "From the Legacy Project archive." A reporter immediately looked up. CrossAid's public filing named Travis as the original inventor. Adrian turned toward him too late. Marcus faced the unopened kits stacked behind the stage. "Open 4, he said. "Different batches. Chosen by people who do not work for CrossAid." Adrian stepped between Ward and the evidence table. "Those units are protected federal property. This volunteer has no authority to order destructive inspection." Ward studied him for a long moment, then removed the plastic volunteer badge from his neck and set it beside the $9 toolbox. His gray coat opened just enough for the first edge of a decorated military uniform to catch the light. Ward let the gray coat fall open. For silver stars caught the projector light, followed by rows of ribbons and the dark insignia of the National Rescue Logistics Command. No one moved. Even Adrian Cross seemed to forget the microphone in his hand. "My name is General Nathaniel Ward," the old man said, "retired commander of the program that approved MR9 and federal observer for this procurement audit." His voice was not loud, but it crossed the hangar without resistance. Ward placed his Unit 14 challenge coin beside Marcus's $9 toolbox, then opened the sealed military file. This order required every production unit derived from Mr. Technology to retain the lead technician's identification plate beneath the service shell. Not for ceremony, for accountability. Adrian's mouth had gone dry. "General, those components were legally transferred. The contract you presented was created while Mr. Reed was at St. Anne's Hospital." Ward looked toward the screen, where the copied signature remained frozen beside the hospital timestamps. "The records have already answered that claim." He did not ask Marcus to speak. He turned to the audience instead. A fire captain selected a production lot at random. A reporter called out a second serial number. Eli's mother chose a third crate from the unopened stack, and the federal auditor selected a fourth from the rear storage row. No CrossAid employee touched them. Ward picked up the worn pliers from Marcus's red toolbox. The same tool Travis had once held as if it were dirty clicked against the edge of the first orange casing. Ward peeled back the CrossAid label slowly. Adhesive stretched in thin white threads. Beneath it lay an older aluminum plate, scarred but intact. "Marcus Reed, Mr. 9, Unit 14. The room did not gasp. It simply stopped. The projector fan became suddenly loud. Somewhere near the rear doors, a phone vibrated against a folding chair, and no one reached for it. Ward opened the second kit. The same name appeared. The third carried the same plate beneath newer rivets. On the fourth, someone had tried to grind away the letters, but angled light brought them back one by one. Marcus Reed. Elaine Porter's pen slipped from her fingers and struck the concrete. Adrian still held the microphone, yet his hand had begun to tremble around it. Travis stared at the floor. Marcus did not step toward the evidence table. He was watching Eli's mother speak with the medic near the side aisle. "Is he breathing normally?" Marcus asked. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "They say he will be all right." Marcus nodded once. "Then isolate every unit from those batches before anyone discusses awards or ownership." Ward looked at him differently now, not as the poor father who had repaired his cane, and not merely as the technician named in an old file, but as the man who had placed strangers' safety ahead of the moment his own name returned to the room. The evidence followed in order. The pre-written rejection form. Caleb's video of Travis naming the mercy pin before Marcus explained it. The unsigned service logs. The test data showing the lock fail at the third groove. The footage of Marcus warning them before Eli was trapped. The X-ray showing the hidden plate. The hospital records proving the assignment agreement was forged. Finally, Engineering Change Order 14 appeared on the screen with Marcus listed as lead technician and Ward's own signature beneath the traceability rule. Adrian tried once more. These were inherited components. Their presence does not prove intentional misconduct. Travis lifted his head. His face had lost all color. He told us to remove the manual pin, he said. Adrian turned toward him. Be careful. He said it cost too much to machine. Travis's voice cracked, but he continued. The drawings came from the Legacy Archive. I did not design MR9. Elaine closed her eyes. The confession did not create the truth. It only removed the last place the lie could hide. Ward ordered the county contract suspended, the affected kits recalled, all Cross-Aid project records preserved, and the evidence transferred to federal fraud and safety investigators. Elaine was removed from the review board pending an ethics inquiry. Travis's engineering license was placed under emergency review. Adrian was instructed to surrender access to the procurement system before leaving the building. Then Ward faced Marcus. The metal kept your name, he said. The system I once commanded did not. That was the system's failure, not yours. Marcus drew one slow breath. Caleb came to his side and placed the scratched nameplate beside the 4 newly exposed plates. The small sound of metal touching metal carried through the silent hangar. Marcus rested his hand on his son's shoulder. He did not look at the cameras. Call every rescue team using those kits, he said. My name can wait until they are safe. Justice had begun, but recognition had placed something new in Marcus's hands. The power to demand more than an apology. The question now was what kind of system he would build when the world was finally forced to listen. The crowd left the hangar more quietly than it had entered. Reporters lowered their voices near the evidence table. Firefighters waited while federal investigators sealed the Cross-Aid kits. And no one touched the 4 aluminum plates bearing Marcus Reed's name. Adrian Cross surrendered his access badge beneath the cold fluorescent lights. Elaine Porter was escorted from the review area after signing notice of her suspension. Travis Bell remained beside an investigator, his shoulders bent, answering questions one document at a time. Marcus did not stay to watch any of them fall. He found Caleb sitting near the medical station with the red toolbox between his shoes. Eli had been taken to the hospital for observation, breathing on his own with his mother beside him. Are they going to put your name back? Caleb asked. Marcus sat next to him and rubbed a dark streak of grease from the boy's thumb. They are going to make the kits safe first. But what about you? Marcus looked across the hangar at the scratched plates now resting inside clear evidence sleeves. I will still be your dad tomorrow. 6 months later, the county contract remained suspended. Cross-Aid had been ordered to fund a full recall and independent inspection of every affected unit without controlling the process. Adrian faced charges for procurement fraud, falsified records, and concealing a known safety risk. Elaine lost her seat on the public purchasing board and was placed under professional ethics review. Travis surrendered the project credit, turned over the archive drawings and internal messages, and accepted a suspension of his engineering license. Marcus did not ask for any of them to be publicly humiliated. He asked for the hearing records to remain public, the names of every technician restored, and every field crew notified of the failed release mechanism. Eli's family received medical support, a formal apology, and a permanent place on the new County Safety Advisory Panel. His mother accepted the position only after Marcus promised it would not be ceremonial. You saw what the paperwork missed, he told her. That belongs in the room. Marcus's own records were corrected more slowly. His name returned to Engineering Change Order 14, the MR9 training manuals, the patent history, and the Unit 14 archive. General Ward delivered the final corrected file to the garage himself. He arrived without cameras, aides, or a military vehicle. The repaired cane still carried the mercy pin Marcus had given him. They want you to lead the replacement program, Ward said. Under Cross-Aid? Under the county. Marcus shook his head. A new logo does not fix an old rule. Ward studied him for a moment, then placed the folder on the scarred workbench. What would? Marcus opened it to a blank page and wrote 5 conditions. Permanent technician traceability, public fail-safe testing, protection for workers who reported defects, family representation on safety boards, and free technical training for veterans, single parents, and low-income teenagers. Ward read the page twice. You are not asking for much for yourself. That is not the same as asking for nothing. The county approved an independent testing and training center inside Marcus's old garage. The warped service door was repaired, the roof stopped leaking, and new lights were installed, but Marcus refused polished showroom floors. The sign above the entrance read, "The Bring Them Home Workshop." Beneath it, in smaller letters, were the names of technicians whose work had once been removed from official records. Travis asked to volunteer there after agreeing to testify. Marcus did not forgive him on command. He required Travis to complete an engineering ethics program, correct every public claim of authorship, and work only under supervision if the affected families approved. A second chance is not an eraser, Marcus told him. It is work you do after the truth. Caleb returned to being 10 years old. He went to school, complained about vegetables, forgot a library book, and spent Saturday mornings learning to measure bolts and label drawers. No one asked him to speak at hearings or carry his father's case. One afternoon, he placed the scratched MR9 plate beside Naomi's photograph on Marcus's workbench. Beneath her faded words, "Bring them home," he added a small handwritten note. She knew who you were. Marcus stood there without speaking. Caleb slipped his hand into his father's, and the garage held a different kind of silence than the hangar had, one without fear, judgment, or unfinished laughter. At the first training class, Marcus set the red toolbox on the center table. The yellow $9 sticker was still attached. No glass case surrounded it. No plaque announced what it had done. He opened the lid and handed each student one worn tool. Ward stood at the back with his cane, watching without rank between them. Before you repair a machine, Marcus asked, what do you need to know? A young girl raised her hand. Where it broke. Marcus looked at the students, then at Caleb arranging safety tags beside him. First, know who could be hurt if you guess wrong. When the class ended, Caleb helped turn off the lights. The old toolbox rested open beneath Naomi's nameplate, no longer evidence of what Marcus lacked, but of what he had refused to abandon. What are we teaching tomorrow? Caleb asked. Marcus pulled the door closed as evening light narrowed across the concrete floor. Something that helps a person get home. And in the quiet after the lock clicked, the little $9 box held no victory speech, only the patient weight of kindness that had finally become justice.